Hi, my name's Charlie King. I'm with Heroic Fatherhood, and welcome to your Mentor's Moment. In today's question, a dad asks, serious question here, fellas. How do you deal with bullying, whether your child is being bullied or is the bully? And I saw this question. I was like, whoa, that's a super wide open question. And depending on whether your child's being bullied or is the bully, seems like they're two opposite directions. But it actually occurred to me that as dads and entrepreneurs, there's actually some commonality in the way that we might address this. So there's nothing more heart-wrenching and agonizing than hearing that your child might be the victim of a bully or the bully themselves. Because if they're the victim of the bully, what does that say about our school? What does that say about their friends? What does that say about us and our job to protect them from harm? And if our kids are the bully, what do we do to create it? How do we stop it? Whose fault is it? And what are the implications of it all? This can be super difficult to deal with, and I totally get it. But here's the thing. We have some pretty great skills. And I want to suggest that it's actually one of our skills as entrepreneurs that we can lean into here to be able to help address whatever might be going on with your son or daughter. And that's all about being curious, right? It's all about being curious. If we had, if suddenly the work that we were doing was not resonating with the types of clients that we've had in the past, we might go, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? But then we put on our entrepreneurial hats and we'd say, you know what? It's time to get curious. What's going on? How did we get here? How is it that all of a sudden something that was working isn't working anymore? So if your child is being bullied or is bullying, the first thing to do is get super curious. Get curious what's going on or what's changed that suddenly your child is either a victim of a bully or that they are becoming the bully. And that's the first place to get curious. And that's super important that you get curious with your child, assuming they're old enough to really interact about this. Very often, if it's a young child, they may not understand it. They may be able to tell you who the person is or that they, if they're being bullied, but they may not be able to give you a ton of it. The older they are, they'll be able to give you more. But when we get super curious about what's going on, like, hey, what's going on? It seems like you come home from school super sad, or you told your mom that somebody's picking on you at school. Can you tell me more about it? I want to understand and help, right? We want to make sure that they know we're on their side and we're there for them and we're there to help and we're there to support them and we care about them a great deal. But we're a little bit like fact finders, like a newspaper reporter or a policeman. We're taking notes, just the facts, ma'am. So we want to make sure that we're understanding the situation long before we take any action. On the other side of the coin, if our child is being the bully, likely we're hearing about it from somebody else, whether that is from another child or the parent of another child, or perhaps from school or from a sport. And that's really important that we get all the information from every party that we can, whether that be our child or a witness, somebody who saw that, or the school administration. And what we want to do is get all the information, and we really want to make sure that we're checking in and communicating with our son or daughter. Like, I've heard that, right? Like, here's what I've heard. Can you tell me more about that? And very often when you get multiple different stories, whether this is adults or kids, but especially with kids, it's a little bit like telephone. What one kid said turns into something else by the time it gets to the second or third kid. So we want to make sure we're getting as much information as possible so that we can decide, are there actions to take here? Is it just a conversation we need to have? Or is there something actually to do? So, if your child's being bullied, there are lots of things you can do long before we interact with the school or interact with somebody else's parents. Finding out who this person that is bullying your child is this part of their social group? Is it part of their team? Is it somebody in their class? Is it somebody from outside of their social circles? And what are some strategies that they can use to either avoid confrontation or avoid being in front of that person at all? If this person is only a bully when they're playing games on the playground, then it might just be as simple as don't play games with that person anymore because they obviously get upset and take it out on the people they play against. So, or avoid that person. Now that can be easier said than done. And especially if you're a young child. So it's super important to think of a number of different ways that you can communicate about that, and invite your child, if your child's being bullied, invite your child to advocate for themselves. Look, if this person is cornering you in a classroom, if this person is cornering you on the playground, if you feel nervous to walk down the hallways, they get to advocate for themselves and talk to teachers. Talk to teachers. That's the teacher's job, and the teacher should be paying attention. And if your child comes to them and says, this is going on, it is the responsibility of the teacher to stop that behavior, mitigate it, and report it as necessary. And these are all things we want to make sure we're doing long before we get into screaming matches in the parking lot, because having been witness to many of those in my days, they never turn out well, and all they end up with is hurt feelings. Now, on the other side of the coin, if your child is bullying, something's going on. Something's changed. Something's shifted for them wherever they're at. Now, it may just be a developmental issue, but there's definitely something going on for them that they feel they need to be on top of or be over another student. There may be, and it could be feelings of insecurity, or that they don't feel like they're good enough, or where they were top of the heap before, they're not anymore. And so the only way they know how to do it is with their size, or with their words, or with their physical strength. And getting to the root of it, if your child is being the bully, is going to be really critical, because we want to make sure we step in. We make sure we step in long before school administration and other parents become involved. And we want to really stand by and for our kids, right? So in that, you want to stand by them. You're like, what's going on? Why is it that this is so-and-so reports that you're being mean to them in the playground on a regular basis? What's the thing that's going on in the background? And it's okay to ask for help here, whether from a school counselor or your spouse or an outside professional. But there's probably something going on underneath that has your child feel like that they need to exert their power, strength, or size, or words, or intentions on top of another student. But we also want them to own up for their responsibility in the offer. If there's one child or a number of children that your child has bullied, we want to make sure that they take not responsibility for it as well. And this is super important, is that there are consequences for bad behavior. And you get to decide what they are. I can share for you, in our house, the first thing you need to do is go and apologize, and not in a halfway, but there's going to be writing letters. There's going to be monitored conversations between you and the kids whose feelings have been hurt by you. We are going to make sure that you're going to be owning up to your side of the street, and that we make sure that they hear the apology. Now, once the apology is given, it's going to be up to the person receiving the apology to accept it. But we need to own what we call our side of the street. And when we can demonstrate this, and when we can support our kids through this, it will lay such a powerful framework for how they can expect things are going to go in the future, and really lay a great groundwork for taking responsibility moving forward. So this was such a great question. Thank you so much for asking, and keep them coming. I really appreciate all these questions. We love answering your questions. So if you're watching this video, I have a question for you. How would you have addressed this dad's issue? And do you have a question of your own? And lastly, I want you to remember, we become better men by spending time with good men. So we come to you every week with these Mentors Moments, where we answer real questions from dads who are entrepreneurs and fathers who are navigating fatherhood and having a great time with it, but also have questions, because we all have questions about fatherhood, and it never came with a manual. And many of us are trying to lean into the next phase of what fatherhood looks like in our society. And thank you so much for being here. This has been Charlie King with Heroic Fatherhood, and this has been your Mentors Moment.